name's Shane Steele. I'm the City of Grand Marais Sustainability Coordinator, and I also help the city develop their climate action plan. And today I'm going to talk about just a couple things like climate change and City of Grand Marais carbon emissions, and some of the city actions that we've been doing to reduce our carbon footprint, and then programs that you can participate in to reduce your carbon footprint. And then I want to spend the last part of my talk going over a pretty exciting technology called Airsource heat pumps, which is a great way to heat your home for efficiently and electrically. And you'll see what that's for in my presentation. So I think the previous speakers covered climate change pretty well, but I'll just say that we're at about 1.1 degrees C of warming above pre-industrial levels, and that we need to keep it to 1.5 to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. And that temperature lags behind carbon emissions. So we're kind of baked into a certain amount of warming already. And so what can we do to keep things at 1.5 degrees C is we need to decrease emissions by about half by 2030 and produce about 3/4 of our electricity or supply our energy needs renewably by 2050. And so those are two numbers to remember. Reduce our carbon emissions by about half by 2030, and 3/4 of our energy needs to be produced by renewables by 2050, because that'll come up one more time. So what do Grand Marais carbon emissions look like? The city's carbon emissions, most of it's coming from electricity. About 65% of our emissions are coming from using electricity, and then 20% from heating fuels like propane and fuel oil, and 15 coming from driving our cars. But that number is probably on the low end. So let's say that heating fuels and transportation are both 20% of our emissions. That big blue bar is our electricity, and the city buys its electricity from a joint action agency called the Southern Minnesota Municipal Power Agency. Don't ask me why we're part of Southern Minnesota Municipal Power Agency, but SIMPA is a joint action agency that there are 18 cities in Minnesota that buy their electricity from SIMPA. And in 2020, SIMPA went through a rebranding process called SIMPA 2.0 and set some goals for 2030. Specifically, they are going to retire a coal-fired power plant and replace all of that generation with renewable energy, wind and solar. And this is going to reduce their emissions by 90% 2005 levels, and 75% of their generation will be renewable by 2030. So those two numbers I asked you to remember, 90% of emissions, SIMPA's going to reduce 90% of their emissions. That's well above the goals of the IPCC. And then 75% renewable generation by 2030, that's 2 decades ahead of IPCC. So SIMPA, very powerful partner for Grand Marais to have, because like I said, the emissions that we produce, most of them are from electricity. So let's look at those emissions again, but with the 90% of SIMPA's electricity taken out. And what should we be focused on in the city? Heating, fuel, and transportation, because SIMPA's taking care of electricity for us. So let's let them do that, and we can focus on what we can have a big influence on. So now, what is the city doing? What actions are we taking in those two sectors? And this next part's almost going to be like, because I don't have enough time. This is like preview to a movie. You get just a snapshot of these programs, and if you have any more questions about them, come find our table. We're right next to the giant soil and water conservation district over there. Come find our table and get more details. But the strategy the city's taking is, again, leading decarbonization to SIMPA, and we're focused on electrifying transportation and heat, and increasing efficiency. So increasing efficiency saves our utility customers money as well as reduces demand so that we don't have to produce that much electricity. So a couple things you've probably seen around town are EV charging stations. We have the only DC fast charger, which is a big white one. We have the only DC fast charger on the North Shore. And these went online July 2021, so not quite a year. And we've already had 700 charging sessions, and the city's collected $3,500 in fees since then. Yeah. And then we did put up some more solar. So now the city owns 80 kW of solar, and this ground-mounted system went in last fall, and it's right next to the Public Works garage. You can see it from the highway. It faces away from the highway to collect the sun, but you can see kind of the scaffolding from the highway behind it. And then the other 60 kW, we have rooftop array on the Public Works garage, and then there's the Dunflint built solar project. And then coming soon, not quite ready yet, but you know, keep watching your Wednesday afternoon utility meetings, PUC meetings. We're working on a home EV charging grid, and this is to reduce demand. If you can imagine a time in the next few years when we have maybe lots of EVs on our system, if everyone follows patterns, comes home, plugs in their EV all at the same time, we have this huge spike in demand, and that spike is not good for a grid that we're trying to make renewable. And so this rate would allow for cheaper charging overnight, but then more expensive charging during the day. So cheaper off peak, more expensive on peak. So keep watching your PUC meetings for when that's rolling out. Here's a program that you can participate in right now. Green power purchasing is a way to offset your electricity use with renewable energy certificates. So it's almost like buying a little bit of a wind turbine, or investing in this case, it would be like a rivet or a screw. You're not getting a whole blade here, but if enough people go in and invest in renewable energy certificates, it really does make an impact on expanding renewable energy. So the city charges $1.12 per rec, and you can go on the city's website, which I have a little. There's the city homepage, and you can find our sustainability page and the green power purchasing page, and learn a whole bunch more about green power purchasing. And there's even a Google form there where you can sign up, and you can buy enough recs to offset your electricity use, which is probably only like 1 or 2 recs. So I think almost anybody could afford an extra $2 on their utility bill. Another program that we have rolling out, like I said, these are only the snapshots. This is the preview. This is the full show. We have a virtual home energy assessments, which this is a program that we've just been working on with the Center for Energy and Environment, and they had developed a virtual home energy assessment because they couldn't go into people's homes because of the pandemic. And so I thought that would be a great way to reach out to people who live in rural communities who don't have access to energy efficiency professionals. And so you can, if you're interested in a virtual home energy assessment, you can sign up and fill out a form with some of your home's characteristics, and then get a kind of like a Zoom call with a energy efficiency professional, and they can talk about air sealing and insulation and appliance efficiency. And if we get enough people interested in programs like this, we can convince CE to come up and do in-person follow-up energy audits. Okay, so Airsource heat pumps is what I want to spend the rest of my time with. And if you can see, sorry. Yeah, go away. So if you can see on the slide, this is a breakdown of how homes use energy. And the average Minnesota home, about 55% of energy use comes from heating and air conditioning. And in Grand Marais, it's probably mostly heating and not so much air conditioning. But with over half of our energy use coming from heating, the choices that we make about our heat matter. And so Airsource heat pumps are a technology that is getting more and more efficient over the last few years, and it's basically like an air conditioner that can work in reverse. And so it efficiently heats and cools, and it does this by moving heat back and forth. So in the summertime, when you want it to cool, it can take heat from inside your house and move it outside. And then in the wintertime, it can pull heat out of the air and bring it into your home. And it can do this down to 5 degrees if you have a cold climate air source heat pump. And that does sound silly to say that an appliance can pull heat out of 5-degree air, but that's what this technology can do. And below 5, you would have a backup heat source, say your current furnace or baseboard heating, whatever you're currently using as your heat, that would kick in and supply you heat so that when it is 20 below, you still have heat and you're not relying on something that can't pull heat out of the air. But these cold climate air source heat pumps can provide heat down to 5 degrees. And so what do they look like? They fit in almost any home. If you have a furnace and you have ductwork in your home, it's basically like an air conditioner condensing unit. They install it outside your home and then it gets integrated into the ductwork and then uses the furnace fan to distribute the heat. And that cost there is more of just like an estimated range. To get an actual quote, you would need an installer to come by and go through your home and figure out the size of your home and how much energy you used, and then you can get an actual quote. But that cost range, just to give you an idea, this is not a $30,000 investment. It's not a $500. It's a few $1,000s. And there's also, for those who don't have ductwork in their home, if you heat with baseboards and such, a mini split option. It's, again, it looks like an air conditioning condensing unit outside, and then there's a wall mounted unit inside. And this is one way you can kind of do zone heating. So if you've got a whole room in the back, you can put a heat pump in there. And then if you've got a room, maybe the basement's cold, or maybe a room in your house, you could. So depending on how many of these you want to put in, that's why that cost is $12,000 there. Not necessarily that you would spend $12,000 to get a municipal heat pump, but that's just kind of the range. So what kind of efficiency are we talking about? How much energy can you save, and how much can you save on your utility bills? People who are heating with resistance baseboards can save 55% on their electric bills, and people who are heating with a propane furnace, you can save 30%. Again, just estimates. You would need an installer to come by and tell you exactly how much energy you can save, but the savings is significant. And if you'd like to learn more about heat pumps, there are a couple of resources to write down here. The Clean Energy Resource Teams, which they have a table out in the hall there. They have stories on their website, and they have educational info. In fact, I stole a bunch of my slides about heat pumps from certs. They gave them to me. But so check out certs for more educational info, and then the Minnesota Airsource Heat Pump Collaborative is a collaborative between a lot of different electricity providers, Simba included, and they have frequently asked questions as well as a preferred contractor network, which is these are installers that have a lot of experience installing heat pumps, and they have gone through a few trainings to demonstrate that their knowledge base is enough that they would be recommended as a good installer. And we have one of those installers here today. Twin Ports Custom Climate has a table out back, or out in the gallery there, They're a Superior Wisconsin-based heat pump installer. They've been putting in heat pumps for a long time. And if you are interested in learning more, they can answer some technical questions. They have a heat pump they brought with them. They brought a mini split. They brought a mini split heat pump with them, so you can see the size. And their technician they brought is super knowledgeable and can answer your questions. And you can even sign up. You can even sign up to. I really don't like this. You can even sign up to have them come and give you a quote. They would come into your home and do a full assessment. You can get a quote. So next steps, everyone here is of course going to sign up for a virtual energy audit at my table. And everyone here is going to go check out Twinport's custom climate, maybe look into a heat pump. And if those two, maybe those two things aren't, you're not in a place to spend a few $1,000s on a heat pump and have a virtual energy audit, but everyone here can look into buying bricks. Great way to get the ball rolling. Start your Earth Day with some action, and yeah, these are the things that I think everyone can participate in at some level. That's all I have. I can do a few questions, but I also have the table back there. So if anyone has questions that they want to ask one-on-one, I'll be at the table after this. So appreciate it.